Perfect. Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending today's session. I'm Joshua, and if you haven't sat in on a session with me before, I am one of the co-chairs of the AIA Technology and Architecture Practice Committee, as well as a committee member for the Central Ohio BIM User Group team. And it's my pleasure today to share that the TAP Committee, the Committee on the Environment, as well as the COBUG committees have come together to co-host this event today. So hopefully, maybe a few of you are returning visitors from our first tech trade show. So if you are, welcome back. And if not, if this is your first event with us and you're unfamiliar, kind of the background of this event, I want to talk a little bit about that. So we sent out surveys a while back to gather interest from our membership on different software categories and vendors you were all interested in. And from there, we selected another round of our top ranked tools, and we have them before you today. So each of these vendors are going to get about 15 minutes just to kind of pitch and show us the benefits of their tools and try to show off why they think that we should invest in them and we should use them in our practice. So there will be time for questions after each presentation. And I'm just going to show you a couple of learning objectives. Okay, so our goal for the event really is to gather a pulse on where the interest of our industry is for the tools, processes, and desires, and bring those companies in who can help, trying to connect the needs of you, our membership, to people that can really help get you what you need. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our event. But before we get started, I'm going to pass it over to a few others to talk a little bit about our committees today. So we're going to start off with Nicholas in the TAP committee.
Hey everyone, I'm the co-chair of the TAP with Josh. So I want to thank Josh for helping to organize all this, emceeing the activities today. If you're not familiar with TAP, we are famous for our TAP takeovers. So if you're looking to talk shop, we do schedule these at local breweries and other distilleries around Columbus here. But what we're really trying to do is just make sure our members and other people within the industry, building industry, as well as architecture and engineering, are informed of the latest kind of innovations coming up with basically how buildings are put together, how documentation is assembled, and how the construction is administered. We meet regularly, second Thursday of even months, and I think we're pretty much switching back to in person. So please join us at one of our upcoming events.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Next, we have Amy with Committee on the Environment.
Hi, I am Amy with COAT, and I just want to thank Josh and Nicholas and TAP for having us here today. They've done an amazing job organizing all of this, and we're just kind of tagging along. So I'm really happy that we can join in. A little bit about COAT. Our mission is really to promote a sustainable environment by creating educational resources for our members and the public, and by advocating. And on the latter point, we're trying to do both this year. And in line with AIA Columbus's current priorities around equity and environment, this year COAT is focused on building partnerships to engage in climate action at the local level. So for the past few months, we've been meeting with the City of Columbus Office of Sustainability staff so that we could learn more about the Columbus Climate Action Plan and how our members can contribute to building a more sustainable Columbus. On June 8th at noon, we will be hosting a virtual panel on the Columbus Climate Action Plan, featuring a panel from City of Columbus sustainability staff. We hope that you can join us so you can learn more about the city's exciting initiatives and so that you can get involved. And also, we welcome you to join our meetings, which occur monthly on the second Monday of the month at noon virtually. The next one is May 9th. So we're really happy to be a part of the seminar today and really look forward to hearing about the tools available, specifically COAT tool. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. And then last but not least, we have Beth with COBUG.
Hi, I'm Beth Ivano, part of COBUG, which stands for the Central Ohio BIM User Group. We are a learning and knowledge sharing group that extends beyond architecture. So we've got electrical, mechanical, contractors in the group as well. So all aspects of using BIM. And our presentations usually occur on the second Tuesday of odd number months. Our next one's going to be on May 10th. And you can find any of those by going to the Eventbrite website. and searching for CoBug. And then we're also on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we have a Slack channel as well. So feel free to connect with us on any of those. And just want to say we're happy to co-sponsor this event today. I'm really looking forward to it as well.
Thanks, Beth. We also wanted to give a special shout out to ImagineIt. I'm not sure if Craig is on, but Craig from ImagineIt supports us, not just us, but a lot of other committees across the city. So we just wanted to give a shout out. Thanks again to Craig for everything you do for us and all the great work you do. With that being said, now we're gonna introduce our two speakers for today, and then we're gonna jump into their presentation. Like I mentioned before, we're gonna give each of them 15 minutes to talk about their program, and then 5 minutes of questions, and then we'll have some more time at the end for some more questions. So I'm going to pass it back over to Amy to introduce Marco.
So Marco Aguirre is the research director of Cove Tool and has been with the company since 2018. He holds a degree from the Rhode Island School of Design, where he majored in architecture and digital media. At Cove Tool, he coordinates the research, design, and development of all new features and workflows, as well as creating articles and videos on various topics such as sustainability, building performance, new technologies, and best modeling practices. He is always happy to contribute to forums promoting better building practices and hopes his contributions make building analyses more accessible, intuitive, and easier than ever before to integrate into the design process. Welcome, Marco, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for having me.
Yeah. And Beth, if you want to introduce Randall.
Sure. Randall Stevens is an AEC industry veteran with 30 years of software development, sales, and management experience. Randall founded ArcVision in 1991, a software development firm specializing in 3D graphics and content management technology for the design industry. Randall offers a unique combination of expertise in software and graphics technology, coupled with a background and degree in architecture. Randall is an inventor of the software technology rich photorealistic content, or RPC, which is currently being used by AEC customers in more than 100 countries. Most recently, Randall led product development of the Avail software platform, a fresh approach to the AEC's market's content management challenges. Avail is used by many of the world's largest architecture and engineering firms. Randall is CEO of Avail. Randall received his BA from the University of Kentucky College of Architecture in 1991, served as an adjunct faculty member at the College of Design at the University of Kentucky from 1991 to 2007, and currently serves on the College of Design Advocacy Board. He currently teaches entrepreneurship at the University of Kentucky College of Business. Randall chaired the advisory board for the University of Kentucky Innovation Network for Entrepreneurial Thinking and is currently serving on the board of directors for the Kentucky Governor's School for Entrepreneurs. Randall is co-owner of Base Here, comprising of Base 110, Base 163, and Base 249, housing Central Kentucky creative and technology companies in over 30,000 square feet of office and co-working space in Lexington, Kentucky. He's a frequent speaker and lecturer on technology and entrepreneurship, and we want to welcome him to our presentation today.
Thank you. Okay, so the format for today, we're going to start with Marco and Cove Tool, and then head over to Randall with Avail, and then again, we'll follow it up with some questions and feedback. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to Marco to go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, everyone, for having us. Like mentioned, I have a quick slide deck to show and teach you all a little bit more about what Cove Tool is doing. And if we have some time, of course, we'll answer some questions and also do a quick little sneak peek at the interface. So yeah, let's get into it. First things first, what is Cove Tool? If you haven't heard about our platform before, what Cove Tool is an early stage automated design platform. The goal is to integrate and automate all of the different building simulations that you can do throughout the life of the project. That includes things like energy analysis, cost estimation, carbon studies, and daylight modeling, as well as a huge list of other tools. Shortly, I'll be showing you the interface and the list of the different features that we have in the tool. But before that, I want to talk about some of the challenges the industry is facing and how Cove Tool is providing a solution. So what's the number one challenge? Of course, we're all pretty aware of this fact. Right now, the building industry is an over contributor of carbon emissions. We're currently responsible for 40% of the total global carbon emissions, as well as a majority of the electricity usage. Anything we can do to make our buildings more sustainable, emit less, the smarter our choices can be about the technology we're choosing and the construction practices we have for our designs, the more we can fight climate change by just introducing the delivery of better performing buildings. One thing that we can always trust is the constant revision of the energy codes. Here we map out different iterations of the energy codes and how they're constantly moving towards a more efficient code minimum. Back when the baseline was established for the 2003 CBEX, we saw a pretty high target, or we started to see the constant revisions of targets going for a higher and higher reduction. Pretty soon, we're going to start seeing laws and codes and standards change to require a higher target, such as the 2030 target, which requires net zero energy designs and a lower lower contribution to carbon emissions within operational energy and also an embodied carbon. This is also not speculative. We're seeing some authority standards like ASHRAE announce decarbonization as something that's going to be integrated. Right now, the first task is just to collect resources, understand what the issues are and how we can address them. But later, it's going to be something that we're going to start seeing in the types of things that we're going to have to complete before we can have our buildings approved. Some of the other issues that we're seeing in the industry for folks who've already integrated sustainability into the workflow, these are some common complaints we've heard. First, it requires a lot of different tools. When you have a specialist, the specialist has their own siloed workflows. It becomes incredibly expensive to have multiple different tools. If we're going to do that in-house, only the largest firms can afford licenses and access to all of these different workflows. If you do happen to have a consultant or a sustainability team in-house, the turnaround period to get that information typically takes a long time. So we're seeing 2 to 4 weeks before we can get actual feedback on what we should do for our buildings, which depending on the type of project and your datelines can be an unrealistic goal. And then also for most projects, there lacks any sort of budget to hire consultants or to have more teams use their billable hours in order to make that building more efficient. So the issue of time management is something else that we're seeing in the industry. Because our industry is currently digital, or as we've quickly transitioned into a more digital workflow from the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of issues pop up, like a lack of software access, lack of collaboration environments, unfriendly file transfers. I think all of you have experienced trying to send your consultants Revit files or other file types, that information not arriving, or the other folks not being able to receive that information or not using that information. We're seeing a lot of loss of data, more specialists becoming involved. It's becoming a harder process to oversee. And because of all of these different workflows, databases, the costs can go up and there can be a lot of delays. And those delays are what cost the majority of the projects to go over budget. Another key issue that we're seeing, that we're hearing from a lot of the folks who are turning to Cove Tool, is that they have difficulty integrating sustainability because they don't have the support of their clients, or their collaborators aren't working with them in order to hit those higher goals. So that's also something that Cove Tool is hoping to address. How are we going to address some of these issues? Well, first things first, you need very little information in order to set up a Cove Tool project. And with the details you can give us, we can pre-populate things like the energy model, the daylight simulation, the cost database, the carbon database, so on. So we can make their workflow a lot easier, and you need less expertise in order to set up these models, unlike previously. We also are a collaborative platform. Everybody in your project team can be invited, can run different types of analysis. Later, we'll show you a projects or a features list of everything that they can do. So more folks can work early on, understand what's happening in the project, and share feedback. So a lot of that value expertise can be used and applied in your earlier stages. Hopefully, this makes everyone a lot more confident about the decisions they're trying to make for their project and actually deliver better performing buildings. And then one feature that really makes Cove Tool stand out is that everything that we do, we always try to look at the cost aspect of that. So we can always leverage costs and understand what's going to be the return on investment for choosing one manufacturer or one product over another. What's the most efficient installation properties? the building orientation to allow for the most daylight access, all compared to cost. So really one core value of CoveTool. If you're not familiar of what exactly CoveTool is introducing, it's the ability to move the analysis period earlier into the life of the project. If you haven't seen this graphic before, this is a Mclearny curve, and it just shows in the traditional process, we typically analyze our building's performance once the building has been designed and the construction document phase. And if we realize that we're not able to deliver a code minimum building, or certain issues have come up and we have to redesign the building, it can be an incredibly expensive process. This is where the projects go over budget, and we require more and more folks to work on redrawing the sets, changing the building design, and so on. What CoveTool does is if we can run analysis earlier and often, the more impact we can have on the building's cost and performance, because we can make those decisions while the building design is flexible. So as you're trying to figure out the best orientation, window to wall ratio, or even select system types, other technology strategies, we can do that before we've made any specs or before the project has moved into a more established phase. There's also a lot of other benefits. So if you don't know, CoveTool is a completely web-based application. That means everything is stored and ran on the cloud. There's a list of different simulations that you can run. Hopefully this is also going to help you expand your business, as these are more services that you can offer to your clients. Everything is going to be centralized. There's no download requirements. As long as you have an up-to-date internet browser, you should be good to go. And then all of this information is stored in our platform. So if you do have turnover, if the project loses budget for a while and it's a couple of months later before you readdress it, all the information is going to be stayed in the CoveTool platform. There's a lot of other reasons why CoveTool is kind of doing analysis better than our competition. We're running simulations faster than anybody has been able to do it before. Here's a list of different types of studies, how long they've taken. We do have a more detailed breakdown showcasing how CoveTool compares to legacy workflows and how much time that can be saved. On average, it's 250 hours per project. So a lot of potential by running simulations faster, getting more information, avoiding some of the challenges later on. There's a lot of potential savings for your firm. And also, we want to make sure that you're using our technology as a force multiplier. So CoveTool can help deliver an integrated project team because everybody can coordinate, work within the one interface, share notes, share expertise about what certain decisions need to be made, and do this throughout the life of the project. There's also a lot of great graphics. So here's a quick little snippet of a competition entry that was done using CoveTool. One important thing that you'll need to do in order to win more work is to upskill your team to understand the concepts, understand how to speak the language, what these values mean, how to use them to leverage with your client meetings, your project team meetings, or if you're in a project pursuit, just showcasing what it is you're trying to do, how you're doing it, and what that means for the building is important for an effective, efficient presentation. Getting into the final kind of business points of why you should start adopting sustainability. It's something we're seeing not only from the architecture AEC industry, but also from the clients who are asking architects to look at sustainability. So back in 2020, we ran a survey of over 1,000 architects and engineers from North America, asking them, is sustainability something that's being talked about from your clients? Half of them said yes. So we're definitely seeing a shift in that direction. One of the benefits of the shift of more folks designing and building more green buildings, and also the energy codes constantly making green buildings the standard, is that we're seeing the costs of green buildings go lower. So this is an argument we're hopefully going to be able to showcase as you start running the CoveTool analysis. Since there's a greater demand, there's a greater supply for green building technologies, and it's not as much of a cost as we used to think it was. We're also seeing higher marketability for green building projects. So here's a great diagram from the business case of adopting sustainability. It's an older publication, but it showcases why developers, owners, and tenants are all looking to invest in a greener building. They can protect their portfolio. There's better life cycle costs, lower construction costs, lower depreciation of their projects. And of course, tenants, they want to live in a healthier, more efficient building. There's a lot of science and research that's been done that shows the benefits and increased productivity of green buildings. So there's a lot of different reasons to get your clients and your product team on board as to why this is an important business decision. And of course, a lot of folks have already made the shift. We have over 12,000 users, 22 different countries, all using Cove Tool. It's also being taught at 200 universities. We have firms that are large, small, medium, all different scales, trying to figure out how to adopt more sustainability, use different tools, and a lot of people are very happy about it. So hopefully we made a little bit of the case about adopting sustainability, the different tools that we offer, and how Cove Tool can be an ideal platform for you. So that's a little bit about the presentation. One thing I want to mention before we look at the interface, I think my time's about to be up, but Cove Tool is constantly hosting different webinars and training sessions. If you visit our website, cove.tools, on the training session page, definitely check out our feature webinars. We're also going to be at the AI national event. So if you see our booth, definitely check us out. We're always happy to talk about Cove Tool and what we can do to offer and improve your current design workflow. How am I doing with time before I keep going?
You're good. I'd say you got about 5 more minutes.
Awesome. So if you are interested in starting a trial, definitely check out the website. I want to showcase a couple of cool things that you can check out now. So we do have a features page. You can see of all the different capabilities that we currently have in the app. As related to the Committee on the Environment, one thing that Cove Tool does is we work closely to folks who are part of the 2030 challenge. So if you are a signatory, we do have integrations to automatically report all of your data to the DDX. We can also help you pursue things like lead points. So if your building is pursuing a green building certification, we have a lot of different tools, reports that you can use that in order to pursue those certifications. Here's a quick look at some of our top features. So Cove Tool does have a 3D analysis page. You can see the U-shaped building right there. That's the one you get default from Revit. There's a lot of different analysis that you can run with your building geometry. Cove Tool automatically populates your context. All great stuff. For folks who aren't sure how geometry gets into Cove Tool, check out our App Store. We can use either an existing model. So if you typically work with Revit, SketchUp, Rhino, etc., you can go ahead and upload that geometry into the app. Or if you don't have an existing model, you can also use our new drawing tool interface to set up geometry, edit properties of different elements. So if you want to change the U values, R values, add shades, anything like that, you can do so natively within Cove Tool and then send it through all of the analysis pages. Like I mentioned, everything's populated when you give us minimum information. So if you have, show you, building typology, building location, energy code, and geometry, those are the 4 minimum things we need results. And then you can see all the information that's populated. So this is the energy modeling page. Everything is code minimum, prescriptive. And for anything that isn't standardized, we always default to industry best practice. And then you can just constantly make changes, recalculate, rerun your results. And then if you're a 2030 signatory, then you can report that information to the DDX. You'll have facade prototyping tools, water calculator, climate report. We have a new feature, which is load sizing. So if you work with mechanical engineers and they need help with advanced modeling, you want to do those earlier stage. That's something that we now offer with the load modeling tool. Comparison reports, also great. So here's four massing models. And then we can look at them side by side, make a decision about which one's most efficient, the cost for operational costs, things like that, depending on how you make your decision. And then also our most powerful tool, the optimization feature. So the optimization feature allows you to explore multiple different options, list out different manufacturers you're interested in, look at their performance, their costs, and also embodied carbon. That's going to be an optional field, but if you have it, you should add it. Run the optimization, and you can get a list of different combination of all those alternatives, what's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So for example, right now our baseline building that was established costs $769,000 to build. Right now we're just doing soft cost or bare materials, performs at a 40 EUI. If we spend an additional $26,000 to select these alternative products, we can reduce our EUI to 19 and a 5-year payback period, 52% energy savings, 168 CO2 tons embodied carbon, and earn 18 LEED points while doing all that. And of course, you get a couple dozen or 100 options depending on how many products you added. So cool. I think I could probably take any questions if there's any questions for folks.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. Are there any questions for Marco at this time? We have about 5 minutes for questions. Feel free to ask them now, or if you want to think on them, that's fine too. We will have time at the end for questions. But are there any immediate questions for Marco?
I have a question. The cost database, what is that based on?
Yeah, so right now it's coming from a couple of different locations. It's partly manufacturer supplied. So if you go into the products list, you see products from our database that have a manufacturer. Those came directly from Stora Enso, Rockwool, etc. Information that isn't from a manufacturer is either from an academic database or a national database. So I think lights are from a national database because we didn't really have a good manufacturer source, etc. So they're all based from different locations, and we're going to be updating it pretty soon to include things like labor overhead at a national and a regional scale.
And I guess a follow-up, how current is it? Given the volatility of the construction market right now in terms of supply, labor, and everything, it seems like it's a very open question.
Yeah, so right now we have we conduct a market study that I believe happens twice a year. So every 6 months it gets updated. And once we update the database to include more factors, it's going to reflect more of what's actually happening in the industry. So right now it's very about just material availability and state cost factors, but pretty soon it's going to get a lot more refined and detailed than that. Yeah, right now it's twice a year, every 6 months.
I assume utility cost projections are
it's going to be more historical data than predictive. Okay. So yeah.
So this seems to work really well with Revit, especially. Is there any efforts to allow for substitution for ComCheck or ResCheck, which building departments often rely on and don't work well at all with Revit?
Yeah, so ComCheck and ResCheck likely won't ever develop an API. An API is the connection we need to send information from one tool to another. So right now that process is manual. If you go questions or search any of our library, you can see what our current process looks like, which is manually collecting information from CoveTool, from your results, and just pasting it into ComCheck. But since they're government funded, I likely don't think they'd build the API ever. Yeah.
I guess maybe I'm hearing the question differently. Would CoveTool be able to supply a report that the building department would accept for code compliance for energy?
So it's not a code compliant tool. If you're just using the basic subscription, so baseline energy analysis, which is what most architects get in their subscription, that's for early stage single zone modeling. So one input per category. And this is going to give you a pretty close indication of where your building performance is going to conclude in, because it's a 3 to 5% difference in results, but the approach you need to take in order to make it code compliant is a lot more difficult. We do support that process. So from your CoveTool project, you can generate an OSM file, An OSM will allow you to run Energy Plus. That's a code compliant report for zoning applications or other requirements where you need it. But that's not happening within Cove Tool. We do it slightly differently, so it's faster and easier to get an idea of where you currently are.
Okay, so this is mostly meant for your schematic and design development type model reviews to get you into the right path versus code compliance. Got it.
And
Thank
so
you.
that you only have to run code compliance once and you already know you're going to hit it.
Got it. Thank you.
I assume this calculates for the EUI, it's based on source energy, not site energy. So I guess then the question is, where does it pull the energy information from in terms of, does it account for how dirty your fuel is coming from your utility?
I think it is just site energy. So it's just the energy required to operate your building, not including like fuel sources, lost transmission, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's really cool. That's great. And second question, can you talk a little bit about the embodied carbon analysis?
Yeah, so right now Cove Tool is helping calculate 2 steps of the LCA. So we do product stage embodied carbon analysis, which is going to happen on the optimization tool. As you add different products from different manufacturers, one of the things that you can add is the kg CO2e. So right now you're copying and pasting that from a EPD, the Environmental Product Declaration. We also have a plugin from the EC3 tool to copy and paste that information into Cove Tool. So that's something that you can do. That's going to give you your embodied carbon for the product stage in each different bundle. So depending on what material combination or selection you choose, that's going to be your whole building embodied carbon just for the product stage and also just on the fields that you've completed. So if you skip structure or interior finish, it's not going to have that included in that stage. And the other part of the LCA that we help calculate is the use stage. So that's the operational carbon emissions. And that's just based on how much energy you consume, the equivalent carbon emissions you emit based on your utility breakdown. So that's that number here, and then the % reduction.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if you're new to the embodied carbon conversation, because I know a lot of folks are just starting to get into that, we have really great resources in our help library. You can just type it in and you don't need a Cove Tool subscription to read our articles. We have over 400, but really great stuff we've captured for everyone.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and stop us there. If you still have more questions for Marco, feel free to type them in the chat. We are going to move on and get over to Randall with Avail. But again, we will have time for more questions at the end of this session. So I'm going to go ahead and now pass it over to Randall with Avail. Keep going.
Great. Thanks, Josh. My name is Randall Stevens. I'm the founder and CEO of Avail. I'm going to use some slides to kind of walk you through and the software up. I'm happy to show you a little bit more about how it works live. Avail has been in the market for 5 years now. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and it is being used, as you kind of see, a representation of some of the logos that I have on the screen. You know, some of the best, I'll say, architecture and engineering firms around the world have begun adopting it over the last 5 years to help with their content management needs inside of their firms. So we're very lucky to have them and for them to support the efforts that we're doing. I'm going to spend just a little time explaining kind of how we think about the problem, and then show you some specific examples of tools that we've built to help solve these problems. Specifically, I'll show you some new things that we've done around managing Revit content. But you know, one of the challenges that we have around what we're doing is how to describe it. We call it a content management system, but You know, when we talk about content, we're kind of sometimes talking about files on a file system. Ultimately, it's information, it's data, it's content. I think it's getting blurrier and blurrier what these things mean to people. I like to say if it's digital, we're managing it and helping to manage it inside of Avail. So one of the ways to think about, or the way that we think about the problem in the industry, and as in the intro you heard that, you know, I'm an architect by training, never practiced a day in my life, but I'm kind of sympathetic and been around the industry for this whole time. And, you know, we produce a lot of information in this industry. I'm always amazed when I really dig into it that anything ever gets built. When you look at, I mean, it's really amazing of just how much information it takes that is being generated and pulled together to get these projects done. And as Marcos was, one of his slides kind of caught my attention. I'll have to see if I can borrow that when he talked about, you know, information and data and files. They're being, you know, they're ending up in lots of different places now, lots of different file systems. You know, it used to be that we used to just have to fight, where is it on our network that I can get to it. And now it's not only where is it on my network, but it could be in BIM 360 or in some other cloud location where all this information is being stored. So one way, you know, a way that we now kind of think about the scale of the problem, the large problem is looking at all this information that we're creating is trapped. You know, a lot of times, you know, we started working on this, the solution to this around what it meant to search and navigate in new ways the files that are on your file system. But as we dug into this, and you'll see this when we start talking more specifically about some of the things we're doing in Revit, a lot of times there's just information and data that's stuck in a file itself. So we've got lots of software that we all use. There's lots of info and data that ends up in these files. And so it's not only that files on the file system are difficult to find and get to and retrieve, but just even data within the files themselves. And I won't get too much into it today, but you can start to even look at the information that's in the pieces of software that we use and around the projects. And we're starting to really look at the way we've approached the problem of, can we help you get to this different information, whether that's in a file or the information even that you're working on inside of the project. So Avail is what we call a content management platform. We made a couple of decisions early from a technology standpoint as we approached the problem. And I think, you know, I think it's served us well. One was we wanted to be completely content agnostic. So back to what I said earlier, if it's digital, you can get it into Avail. We've had to do some very specialized things around applications like Revit and some of the specific content challenges that those kinds of applications have. But in general, you can think about that Avail is completely content agnostic. So just to put a point to that, we've seen over 1,000 different file formats of content that's being managed inside of Avail by our customers. And you know, it's not unusual inside of a large organization to see between 100 and 200 different applications being used in the workflows. It doesn't surprise, you know, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but then when you start kind of looking around with your own, all the different tools you use and the different disciplines use, there's just a lot of different applications are in use. And a lot of those applications are creating content in their own proprietary file formats. So when we started working on how to think about solving this problem, we didn't approach it from an application specific standpoint. We started thinking about it very broadly, which was everybody is swimming in all of these different kinds of files and different information. So we want to be able to help manage and on behalf of the end user, help you get to that information that you need in your daily work. So that was the first kind of design consideration as we began to tackle the problem. The other decision that we made was that Avail does not take possession of your files. In other words, you do not put your content or your files in Avail per se. So we let the content reside wherever you've decided you want it to reside. So we like to say we're not only file type agnostic, we're location agnostic. And what you'll hear us talking about now is bring your own storage. Where you need or want to store information is can be very particular to the firm or the project even about where this information needs to live. So Avail was designed to ultimately point to and help you navigate and get back to this information. So this has served us really well. You know, 5 years ago, the cloud, people were experimenting with it. Some movement was going in that direction, but really in the last, since COVID hit, the cloud all of a sudden lit up. Everybody was either moving data off their on-prem networks into things like OneDrive, a lot of movement of data into Autodesk BIM 360 and these kind of cloud locations for this information. So that's actually played really well because Avail has the ability to sit in front of all that information and ultimately act to help you navigate back to where all that information is. So again, things like BIM 360, but you can think about very popular things in this industry like SharePoint, OneDrive. We're actually doing some new features right now to help reinforce the support of what it means to manage that kind of data, but also things like Dropbox and Google Drive. And then, proprietary on-prem networks, which are, cloud first, like Nasuni or Panzura, Ignite. We have some customers using Ignite now. So our philosophy at Avail is we want to support our customers wherever they've chosen for their data to live. So that's kind of our technical challenge, is to make sure that we can let them continue to support or make those choices of where they need or want their data. Ultimately, what we see across our customers is this approach is allowing our customers, one, again, on behalf of the end users, fewer apps that the people have to manage that are managing the deployment of these kinds of tools, fewer apps for the end users to have to learn. It's one interface that you can use to get back to all this info and data. Because it's agnostic, you can access ultimately all kinds of sources of information, including URLs. You can actually index and manage URLs. So like the Cove tools, because that runs in a browser, you can actually organize and manage those Cove tools, and access to those point solutions like he was showing earlier could actually show up in Avail and be accessed through our desktop application as a way to get back to that information. But I think those are actually great examples of, it used to just be that we had pieces of software running on our desktop and we were trying to run that and get information. But now we're starting to see more and more tools like Cove tools, where now that's another destination or another place and of tools that we want to use. And those just exacerbate the challenge of, hey, we want to use all these tools, but they're all in different places. So what we're trying to do with Avail is bring all of those, not fight that these things are in different places, but try to embrace that and solve the problem of navigating and bringing all that back into one place for you. And ultimately, because we're agnostic to these, we like to talk about it with our customers and potential customers, that it really future-proofs the problem. We don't really care what tool you're going to decide to adopt tomorrow and start using. Our goal is that we'll support it at some level. And if there's very specific problems, we can take deep dives like we've done around Revit on specific kinds of applications. Just to show you what Avail ends up looking like, we've had a real focus. We are 100% focused in the AEC industry, and we know that a lot of the content and information that we use in this industry is very visual in nature. So we've had a real emphasis on the visual nature of people in this industry, designers, engineers, getting back to information in very visual ways. I was joking earlier when we were talking about this that, from a design standpoint, also the applications, we like to think that we're a little bit more Apple than we are Autodesk when it comes to like design. We try to make things simple. We like to think we've got I've actually got a large number of my engineers that actually have computer science degrees also have architecture degrees. So I've found people that are kind of sensitive to the industry, understand the challenges, have the ability to code and engineer, but we think about design as we're going through, just as you all would in the projects that you're working on. What you're seeing, this is what we call the home screen. We organize information in what we call channels. You can just think about a channel. think of it like a music playlist. You know, it has information that you can add into it, and it's just a navigation way to get back to some common information and content. You'll notice, you know, in this example, that just the names of the channels, you know, I've got technical content like Revit or in AutoCAD or Rhino or some SketchUp content that's been organized, but I could also have specifications or material libraries or marketing assets that are all organized at the company level to come back. And this is all completely customizable, including the graphics to a firm's standards. When you go into a channel though, especially around technical information, this is a good example of us putting the kind of emphasis on the visuals. This is an example of Revit detail libraries. A lot of our customers use Avail to build and manage their detail libraries, among other things around the Revit content. But you can see to the left are the actual individual assets. I want to talk a little bit deeper about what we do on that front. But on the right is what we call the preview panel. You've got high resolution previews. This is all, you're able to see this, search and find this information before you bring that information into your technical application. So this is all about how quickly we can help you search, find, see, browse, and then get that information into your project. Last year, we released several new features. I'm going to kind of take a little bit deeper dive into this harvest, which is around Revit here in a second. But we also have some feature that we released called Tag.io. Tag.io is a way for the admins of the system to use Excel spreadsheets to actually push and pull metadata and tags in and out of the system. We actually have link sharing now, so you can actually go to an individual piece of information, share a link out, and share that link on Teams with your colleagues, put it in an email. It could be a link to an entire channel of content that may be on your help system to tell a new employee where to go for certain information and find. And then last summer, we actually started working on mobile. So we actually have mobile applications now for both iOS and Android. You might say, well, why would I want to get to my library of Revit content on my mobile phone? When you start looking at what we're doing around project information and project data that's forthcoming, it starts to make a lot more sense on the mobile side to be able to see and touch information no matter where you are, maybe out in the field, maybe you're a project manager, maybe you're not even somebody that uses Revit, but what we're really focused on is sometimes the people that know the information are not necessarily the people that are in the technical applications doing it. So if we can start to abstract that info away from Revit, let them see things, search it, maybe even do simple markup on some things, and then use that link sharing to send it back. Then somebody that's maybe in a Revit application at their desk, one click, and they're right there in their technical application around that piece of content. So several exciting things that we've been working on that front. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes though and give you a little bit deeper dive when we talk about data being stuck in a file, not just files on the file system. We have a feature called Harvest. We released the 2.0 version of that right about a year ago. It's specifically right now around Revit and helping to solve some problems around Revit content. I like to say that if you're managing families in Revit, it's actually pretty easy. A family ends up existing as an RFA file. It can sit on your file system. You can organize it in folders and get back to it. You can obviously index it in Avail and get back to it. The tougher problem specifically in Revit and content around Revit is everything that's not a family. So what I mean by that are sheets, drafting views, schedules, legends, groups, system families. There's a lot of content that's in Revit that can't be saved as an individual file. Everything that I just mentioned basically has to be stored in an RVT project file. And that's been very cumbersome, not only to organize, but really complicated to use by the end users to find and use, hard to get to. So what Harvest does is it lets that information, we basically can abstract the individual items of your choosing away from the RVT and representing an Avail as an individual item that now becomes searchable. And once you've found that, you can see it and you can then just drag and drop it into your Revit project. So what you're seeing on the screen on the left, these are actually, if you look at these element types, you can see that, drafting views, families, groups, legends, schedules, sheets, system families. A lot of this information, it's all being stored in an RBT file behind the scenes, but for the end user in Avail, it just looks like it's an item that I can search, find, and you can literally just drag and drop it from this Avail interface into your Revit project, and Avail takes care of plucking that data out of wherever it was stored behind the scenes, loading it into the current project, and most of the time putting you in placement mode depending on what you're bringing in. You can also do things like bulk loading. So a lot of our customers will do things like around specific project types. They'll create channels that are designed around specific project type, and the people that start working on a project can just multi-select a bunch of things, get bulk load, and bring a bunch of this data kind of shooting in to start up a project. So we just make it as convenient and easy for people to search, find, and get this data into their project. This has a lot on it, but I thought, for those of you that are thinking about what way this actually works, that the harvest is basically a pre-process that runs in Revit. If you're the admin of it, you're basically organizing your data in one of these RVT files. We call them container files. I've heard customers call them warehouse files. Tends to be kind of common across the industry. Everybody's got the problem. It seems that drafting views are the number one, but we've all got the problem of system families and some of these other kinds of data types that are very difficult right now to manage in Revit. So what Harvest lets you do is run this pre-process on that kind of data. It ends up then showing up in Avail for your end users as individual items, complete with all the nice graphics that come with it. It's all then tagged, searchable, easy to find, and the end users can just drag and drop it. So in the end, you can think about this, it's kind of having your cake and eat it too. It makes it simple for whoever's trying to manage that library of assets to do that inside of a single or multiple, a handful of container libraries where they can do that maintenance. I give the example of why would you not want to just put it all in one big giant file? It does take time to open the file and pluck the data out. So at some point, you don't want a 500 megabyte RVT file with everything in the entire firm in it. It's better to break it down into smaller chunks, but the logical chunks might be, I've got sheets with drafting views on it, and those drafting views are made up of detail items. I'm going to put all of those elements in one container file, manage that as my drafting view library with sheets completely made, and all that data lives. And I put my system families over in another, container file to manage. So, and then on the opposite side for the end users, it just looks like we basically turn everything into as simple as a drag and drop action. So you can treat everything the same, no matter if that's bringing a sheet in or bringing a family in. It's all reduced to, can I find it and can I just drag and drop it into my Revit file? So for onboarding employees and just making Revit more pleasant to use, I like to think, just really takes a lot of the complexity out of what that means. With the Tag IO feature that I mentioned earlier, this lets you use Excel to push and pull information and tags around your information that's in any of these channels inside of Avail. The link sharing comment that I showed earlier lets you just choose any item, right click and be able to get a link to that item and share it out. And then, as I said, on the mobile side, both the iOS and Android support. Nice on an iPad. If you've got an iPad, you can literally, the same things that you're looking at on your desktop, you can scroll through and see when you're remote and away from the desk. And again, this is where the link sharing gets interesting, because it's now I can see it. Yes, I'm not in Revit, but I can see that that's what I would need somebody to use. I can pop that in my Teams or do an email to somebody, and one of my colleagues now is getting access to the piece of content that I wanted to work on. Just one last thing before we can open this up to questions, but Avail has been, I'd say, primarily used for reusable assets and library kind of management inside of our customers' operations. We look at our development cycle, though, as trying to follow our customers. You live and breathe in a project, so we're really following the project life cycle and the things that we're developing. So we're moving into, I used to say project management. We're quitting calling it that. We're calling it project navigation. We're really moving into this position to help you navigate this just kind of vast amount of information, not only in these reusable assets, but actually the information that's in the project itself, which gets interesting. And then we're working on some archive features, which helps the life cycle of what it means. You know, no piece, I'll make a claim, nothing is in your library just because somebody on a whim decided to make something. All this content is usually created because you're using it in a project. So the life cycle of a library and the health of a library is really tightly coupled with, did we create something new for a project, and does that rise to, it should loop itself back around at the end of the project and end up back in the library. The reality in the industry is everybody jumps from one project to the next project as fast as they can. And there's not much time that's used to help kind of figure out what in here could be used, and we surface that and make it a part of our general library. So we're really working on the set of tools and the workflows and process that helps our customers get more of an evergreen flow of this as this information is being created, that it can flow. And we keep a very active roadmap. We can't think any more than about a year out, but our team stays very busy. This is actually the roadmap that we share with our customers of what we're working on. We're working on some new things around related content. So something that's being represented in Avail usually doesn't stand on its own. It might be connected to all kinds of other information. So we're working on this ability to begin to tie information, which a lot of times could be in a different system. A simple example is I might have a drafting view in a library, and if that was in Revit and I've got a parameter that had master format information, I should be able to connect that to a spec system that maybe has master format information and bring that information together automatically without you having to go to another system and go look it up on your own. So we're really working on what I call the connective tissue of starting to connect these systems together and get that information flowing, and again, helping the users navigate to that information. So lots of things you'll start seeing. We will be, for any of you that are going to be at Built, we'll be in Anaheim in June. Love to talk to you there. We'll be at Autodesk University in New Orleans in September. We're planning to be able to show off a bunch of this new project navigation. We're given little teasers of it, but we'll by this fall be starting to roll that out to our existing customers. So I'll stop there, see if we can open this up.
Thanks, Randall. Are there any questions for Randall about Avail? You can speak up, or you can type them in the chat. I'm happy to read those out as well.
How does it handle the different versions of Revit?
So yeah, Revit versioning of content, right, is an interesting dilemma. I was being asked earlier if you can go backwards. No, we don't solve any of the backwards problem of that. Most of our customer, what I'll say about that is our different customers have decided to handle that in different ways inside their own firms. Sometimes they'll create channels with the different versions of the content in it. So if you're working in Revit 2019 project still, or 2020, you can just go to a channel of that information. Avail will upgrade that information kind of on the fly. So if you had something that was in 2019 in the library and you're working in 2022 now, Avail will upgrade that on the fly for you. You don't really have to worry about doing anything on that front. The container libraries, as that matures, obviously, people are managing those in a certain version, a certain kind of baseline version that they've decided to support within the firm. And again, as that content comes forward to a future version, you're either upgrading that thing, to that new version moving forward, or you're letting Avail handle upgrading it on the fly as it comes into a forward version of Revit.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to get back to this page here. Here's the contact information for both Marco and Randall, if you feel like either of these are good solutions for any needs that you have, please feel free to reach out to them. I